We're all on the same page, just to know. Gen Z, those are the ones who are born after 1997. It's said that they are going to be the most diverse demographic in the workplace. And I read somewhere that by 2025, they are going to make up about 27% of the workplace, which is quite significant, and that's kind of why this is a pretty important topic. And I guess something that I've noticed is that they experience the shift to remote work quite early on in their careers, and they've been able to demonstrate that they can be productive from home or from a different location, and having that flexibility is something that they really value and they want to see in their workplaces. So for an employer, we need to make sure that we're maintaining that flexibility in order to retain that talent. Something else that I've noticed is also that they are very strong independent contributors. That's not to say that they don't work well in teams, but they do have, they excel in individual contribution, in independent work, and that's something that they prefer. And so what I've noticed is that we as employers, we need to make sure that we are putting in place individual contributor tracks where they can excel, they can see growth in their journey on the individual contributor side rather than going into a management track. And that shouldn't be the only way that they can progress in their journey. It should be also an opportunity on the independent side of the individual contributor side. And I guess one more thing that I've kind of seen in terms of their traits is just they are a demographic that really wants to work for a company that will walk the talk. So we can say as employers, we value X, Y, and Z, but if we're not living those values every single day, they will notice it and they will not be afraid to walk away from an organization that is not living those values. So that's something that if they trust an organization, and they have similar values, they will do exemplary work, they will work exceptionally well, but if they don't have that same value and they don't see it being lived in, they will walk away, and they have no fear of walking away.
Fantastic, that's very well said. Is this working, by the way? Can you all hear me well?
Yeah.
All right. Thanks so much, Claudia, and I'll probably add on a few things. I have this dual responsibility of sharing my thoughts as a talent acquisition leader as well. So I think one of the things that I'll add to what you just said would be, I think this is a generation which has had maximum access to technology from very early time. And when you have had access to a science, you get to applying of that science very easily. So I think we notice that this talent, whenever we hire, Amazon hires hundreds and thousands of engineers or even graduates every year. And we notice their use of the science, the knowledge, and the technology is way faster than the previous generations because the applied sciences works pretty well. So thank you. Anybody else? Anya or Kiana, do you want to share anything? All right. Okay, let's move on. So one is about this talent, and let's talk about what can other employers do for providing opportunities of growth, professional and personal development, and how is it important for this generation?
Absolutely. I personally have seen that it's extremely important to have those career growth opportunities at the organization. It's something that I've seen, especially in recruitment. I'm getting a lot of questions about what does your career opportunities look like, growth opportunities, what do they look like? What does your learning and development program look like if you have any? I'm getting those questions. So it's definitely top of mind for those candidates. And so having a clear program, if you have one, for learning and development, for example, if you have a lump sum, making sure that the employees are aware of what it is, where they can find it, how they can use it, is something that they will be very thankful for. And something else that I've noticed for career growth is they want to see what the next steps in their roles might be. So in an interview, for example, they're applying for this role, but they're also saying, what's the next step? What would be the next role if I was to join for this one? What's next for me? So they're very forward thinking, which is amazing to see. They're not just applying for this role, they're applying for the entire journey of the company. So what would that look like?
Fantastic. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Again, from Amazon's perspective, if I have to share, I think growth opportunities and professional development is extremely important. Like I said, way more for this generation than others. And I can think of like 7, 8 programs at Amazon, like Microsoft, like Chris was sharing. Amazon also offers like 7, 8 different programs for development of employees, not only this generation, for anyone for that matter. And it's exciting to notice that we meet our employees where they are. So we have functional skill development programs, we have leadership skill development programs, and professional development programs. I can talk of a few that I kind of listed down for you all. There's a very exciting program called Career Choice Programs, where Amazon offers to its operations employees 95% of the tuition and the fees and even the books is paid for if they choose to develop their skills and get certified in something. Then we have Canada Career Series. Then we have a mentorship program. Fortunately, being an organization of our scale, we are able to even have an online portal where mentors and mentees can register themselves, and there is a detailed program on Amazon mentorship. The mentors are trained on how to be a mentor, and mentees are also guided on how to be a effective mentee and how to choose a mentor. Then we have AWS Skill Builder, we have AWS Educate, Restart. These are programs for people from the technology domain or people from non-tech who want to transition to the technology domain. And we also have a machine learning university. We call that Machine Learning Academy actually, which is for people from the tech industry or people with engineering degree who want to get into AI and machine learning. And then we have grow our own talent kind of a program. So variety of area of programs that Amazon also offers. And I think not that everybody has to do all of this, but I'm told that there are SMEs joining this session. So for you need to choose what your employees, what best suits your employee population and what your Gen Zers are looking for. So that's something I'd share.
And I guess just to add, ask them what they want to see. That's something that it's the easiest thing. What do you want to see? And then provide those opportunities.
Absolutely, yeah. Thank you. Kiana, let's go on to you, the Gen Zer amongst us on this panel. So thank you for joining. Very excited to have you. As a recent graduate yourself, how was your journey going through the recruitment life cycle and navigating through opportunities and companies offering, like it's a fierce competition of best talent, best of the best talent, right? What was your perspective and what do you think was missing? Try and talk about that as well.
Yeah, I think there's been a lot of talk about like co-op programs and partnerships, and I just wanted to stress how, I guess, valuable that was for us as students, because there really is no other opportunity for us to get hired with zero experience, even trying to transition to a different industry. And I think the vast majority of my MBA grad class, they ended up working for the company that they did their internship at. So it's really like a great investment and great opportunity for us students. I think like as hard as it is for companies to find talent, one thing that sometimes is missing is it's hard for talent to find good companies as well. There's like now with being able to apply for a company anywhere in Canada or globally, you often find you're applying to a portal and you don't know when you'll hear back. The portal is the same at every different company, and sometimes you hear back in a week, sometimes you don't hear back. And I think candidates really value companies that treat or approach the recruitment process with respect, and they set reasonable expectations so that candidates can proceed in a way that best suits their future plan.
Fantastic. That reminds me of an anecdote. I'll be very candid and open about sharing this anecdote. This is 6 years back. Our director in Asia Pacific Talent Acquisition sent an email 8 a.m. in the morning, India time where I was based, and he says, because of us, Amazon lost 4,500 or whatever that number was, and just 4,500 customers last year. That was it. And obviously he called in for a meeting right after, and he wanted us to guess what happened. You know what was that? What was that? Just to your point, we had 4,500 candidates whom we had not responded to within a SLA that we have decided. So we have something called a 2 in 5 promise at Amazon, which is basically we will respond to you within 2 days of your phone screen and 5 days of your on-site. And we did not do that. And he said there was a research he shared with us, which I was very impressed that a leader is sharing data and research and all of that. He shared with us that companies who do not respond to their candidates, those candidates who are also their customers, choose to stop buying from those companies. And we being a large enterprise into consumer business, he said we have made company lose 4,500 customers. I think it was telling. It was a very impactful thing. So to your point that you don't get responses, doesn't work anymore in the recruiting domain. Other things that you want to share about, transparency. I think for example, some of the US regions like New York, Colorado, and New Jersey, if I remember correctly, I think something in California as well recently came up. They have implemented legislations to ensure that salary ranges are transparently shared on the job postings itself. So how does transparency as a value hold importance for Gen Zers?
Yeah, I think Gen Zers are more connected than ever. Just speaking from my experience, like our class has a portal that's set up from the school where we can share information not just on salary, but like process, things to expect from certain employers. So there's a real great collaborative culture from the aspiring employee perspective, and it's not just things like Glassdoor, Reddit, but there's so much information available that it just puts an emphasis on how candidates really value respect and fairness in these recruiting processes.
Fantastic. Claudia, do you have to share some best practices for recruiting that you've thought of that worked well for you?
Definitely transparency. Like I said, I'm getting a lot of questions, and you just have to be honest about what you have and what you don't have. You want to make sure that the employees and the candidates, their values match the company. So we actually have a survey, I think it's after the phone screen, that asks the candidates, what are your values? What do you want to see in an organization? And then we actually look at that survey to see if it matches our values. Because it shouldn't be that they're trying to find an organization just to find an organization. It should be good on both parts. The employees should feel like they share the same values, and also the company should too. So just being transparent and
That's fantastic. Yeah, that actually reminds me, we live and breathe leadership principles at Amazon. If you've read about it, we have 16 of them. 2 of them got added last year, I think year before. And customer obsession is the primary one we are all tied to and we are all glued to. And we believe candidates are customers. It's important for, in talent acquisition, we apply the theory of everything business. We actually say internally at Amazon that we run HR as business. So we apply the marketing theories on recruitment. If I have to talk about the recruiting life cycle, any talent acquisition professionals or colleagues here would take, kind of attest to it, and my panelists here. It's a full journey of attract, engage, and hire. And when we're talking about attract, you have to meet your customer like it goes in marketing, right? You have to meet your customer where they are, where they hang out. So the use of social media and technology becomes super important for engaging with this talent or attracting this talent or reaching out to this talent of Gen Zers, because that's where they are. Gone are those traditional days where you can send out flyers like 20 years back when I started, or probably send out some advertisements in newspapers. This generation is more on remind me, Snapchat. My son who's 14, he does that all the time. Like I'll send him something on WhatsApp and he's like, I was busy, I didn't see it because I was on Snapchat. And he's more on ChatGPT and so on and so forth, right? So we need to meet this generation there. That's about attracting. Then engaging this talent. We need to engage with them with transparency, with helping them match what works for them and what works for companies. So our job descriptions have to be very, one, inclusive. 2, they have to be very telling of what the role is going to be, what the person's impact going to be in this role, and so on and so forth. And then it's about hiring. The whole recruiting process has to be very inclusive and very equitable. I think that's very important. And then all of this has to be overlaid with the right set of rewards. This generation, as far as my experience goes, and please help me, build on this. This generation is not only about direct compensation. It's beyond salaries. It talks about a holistic rewards and benefits program. So Anya, we haven't heard from you. What do you have to talk about rewards and benefits? Anything that you want to share, or anything about what I just talked about?
Yeah, thank you. I think that if I could pick up something else that we were just talking about on the shifting expectations of Gen Z, the interesting thing that I find about our company is that we pull in data across basically all of our clients, and it's very extensive data on expectations and experiences within organizations. And beyond just, what we're seeing anecdotally repeated in kind of news media or, through word of mouth, we are seeing very fundamentally changing wants and needs from the workforce. And so a really good example of that, for instance, would be in the iBanking sector, which doesn't have the most sterling reputation for like being the most inclusive and diverse. But one of the things that we're seeing in this sector is that actually when we're going in, one of the groups that is the lowest on inclusion tend to be young men around like 30 years old. And, which is interesting because we'd expect it to be sort of women or other underrepresented groups. And the reason why we're seeing that they tend to be exceptionally low is because they feel like they're not able to meet their desire to have families. So they're not able to take parental leave because it is highly stigmatized to like not be at work from the crack of dawn to like, whenever, like way past midnight. And they're really frustrated and upset with their employers. And there's a flow for, changing norms and expectations around whether or not you're able to take family leave if you're a man. But that's really interesting because on the flip side, we're seeing that women don't really have the ability to progress career-wise within those organizations. And academic research is showing us that a lot of that driver is because when women do have children, if they're in a hetero couple, they are expected to take way more maternity leave, which negatively affects their career outcomes. And so what we're seeing now, the conversations that we're having with companies is that, listen, if you just listen to the demands of your employees, you're actually going to be able to, in a lot of ways, quote unquote, kill two birds with one stone, because you're going to be able to unlock the power and the potential of your women employees who will be able to return to work faster. And you're going to be meeting the needs of the young men in your organizations who just want to spend time with their kids. You're going to be stifling that flow and exodus of people from your industry into other industries that are maybe more friendly or more flexible. And so I think that that's sort of an interesting data trend that we're seeing, and it's replicated in lots of different facets. Like we're seeing people with cognitive diversity. They are productive in different ways. They require a little bit more flexibility on the outside of things, of like, maybe starting working core hours or starting a little bit later or ending a little bit later or whatever. And if an employer is able to provide them with that flexibility, productivity skyrockets, and so does inclusion. And I think one of the really interesting things is that Gen Z sort of blew this conversation wide open. Like they came in and they started talking about this. It's almost like when you were saying your point, I was thinking, you have this incredible power that was given to you by technology, the power of community. You have almost like bargaining power for salaries because you're connected with each other. It's like a distributed union or something. That never existed before, right? Previously. And so I think because you started talking about this, it's actually now benefiting hopefully employees that are not Gen Z, employees that are a little bit older, employees that, for instance, we're entering into construction companies where, a 50-year-old foreman leader is suddenly like, I struggle with anxiety and depression. And he will talk about this more openly with his peers because of some of the conversations that he started. And the changes that we see happen as a result of that are oftentimes like truly remarkable. Sorry, that was like a rant.
That was fantastic. Thank you so much. In fact, the beauty is that you come from a company which has cutting edge technology and has a lot of insights of the data. So it's not only about the data; it's about how are you inferring and if you call it decoding that data and coming up with trends. So I'm sure the SMEs here or other employers are picking up a lot of things. Thank you for sharing. Did I miss anything? Did you all want to share anything on that? No? All right, Claudia, let's go back to you. What's your perspective of some of the best practices when it comes to retention of this emerging talent? What goes to keep this generation engaged and loyal and committed to the company?
It's definitely different than what it was before. We don't see as many people staying at the same company for 20 years and that being their career. So loyalty is a big factor to consider right now. And I think definitely career growth is a big one. Having those opportunities, like I mentioned before. Gen Z, they are diverse demographics, so they're looking for DEI initiatives. They're looking for flexibility. So having all that in an organization, but also, like you said, mental health and being able to have a strategy around that in the organization. If they see that, they are more willing to stay with the organization. They value that. They see that the organization also values that. So having those strategies in place and obviously walking the talk, being able to follow through with those strategies is a big one in retention and loyalty.
Thank you so much. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna add some really fascinating numbers that we're keeping track of recently. We're going to publish a piece on this, but it's not really we haven't done it yet. But on the mental health side of things, it's actually wild. So before the pandemic, on average, we saw that about 8% of employees in an organization identified as having some kind of mental health condition. Typically, that was anxiety and depression. Those are the two most prevalent, but there's other mental health obviously conditions as well. During the pandemic, not surprising, I'm sure to anyone here, that number went up significantly. So on average, we saw about 25% of employees identifying as having a mental health condition. And this, obviously again, I'm sure no one's just surprised, the pandemic was terrible. But what we expected is that after the pandemic, that number would go down, right? Because, we're outside now, we can interact with people. Instead, what we're seeing is it has continued to grow. Now, consistently, the number of employees identifying as struggling with mental health in companies is between 30 and 40%, which is unprecedented. Employers don't know what to do with that. And for clarity, we work with hundreds of companies globally. Across Canada, we work with probably the largest organizations. We cover about 80-85% of them. So this is an astonishing statistic. And so when you're planning for engaging with your workforce, like you said, when you're planning on walking the talk, and there's different reasons why, right? There's the openness of Gen Z of talking about it, they're coming into the workforce. There's also destigmatization around men a lot of the time, being able to call it what it is. But just generally speaking, this is something that is huge across the workforce. And so how are employers responding to that, right? What kind of flexibility are they offering? What are the things that they're creating to support their employees? I think those questions are the ones that are going to determine, which employers are succeeding in the next few years and which are not. And then that follows up with silent, quiet quitting too, right? Because if someone is really struggling, they might not actually leave, but their productivity is going to go down. So how do you support your workforce? I don't have the answer.
No, absolutely, those are very valid points. And in fact, few of the things, I don't know if you all know that Amazon was recently named as one of the top employers for Greater Toronto Area, and for the last 3 consecutive years, we have been named as one of the top employers, along with many others of our size, as the top employer for British Columbia. And one of the major reasons I attribute that to, for Canada especially, having worked in Asia Pacific, US, and Canada, I think we're very conscious about picking up data and the trends and building solutions around it. We're a very solution-oriented organization, and when we notice data like that, 3-4 things that I'm very proud to share about Amazon is we have an array of mental well-being and mental health initiatives, or rather benefits, that we offer to our employees. First and foremost, we have up to $2,000 that an employee can claim as a mental health coverage, purely mental health coverage for therapies or counseling or consultation. That's one thing. Apart from that, we have a mental well-being, which is a digital platform where employees can log in, and it's a free of cost service for them. We very recently, as recent as yesterday, launched another thing called Twill Therapeutics. I don't know if you've heard of that. It's an app, again, another digital platform where employees can get on and they can get assistance for financial help, for mental well-being, for multiple things. So those are some fantastic things. Apart from all of this, we have a 24/7 live help available if the employee is going through some mental health situation, and that's 100% confidential. But that said, these are benefits. It's also a lot about what the organization is doing for not getting to a situation that employees have to ask for mental health benefits. So I think inclusion and equity and overall, development and professional development, all of those things play along. and flexibility, like Anya said. So thank you for sharing those perspectives. Anya, your organization, I mean, I'm fascinated. I wish I was in a consulting company like yours where I can throw data like that. I love data.
We're a tech company, big difference.
All right, sorry about that.
We're like you, but smaller.
So, you've created a cutting edge technology which helps empower other organizations for building DEI policies. So, how can companies appeal to diversity values of and preferences of Gen Z? What are you uniquely seeing that's standing out for this generation?
Yeah, for sure. And I know we're getting the 5-minute mark, so I'm gonna talk fast. So one of the things that I think companies are one of the things that I think companies are doing that are actually having a real change or meaningful impact right now is, in addition to the programs and policies, so many of the wonderful things that you were saying that are established at Amazon, you need education, especially for your senior leaders in your organization and your management teams in the organization, so that they can understand how to now embody those values and the values of inclusion that are so dearly important to your company. And so what I mean by that is that unconscious biases will still persist in your organization, regardless of the fact that you can have every single policy under the roof. But if you have a manager that doesn't embody that policy, that doesn't allow their team to use it or to take the flexibility or whatever, you're still going to have exactly the same potentially shitty culture in the organization as if you didn't have the policies. You need your people, you need your senior leaders to live those. And some statistics that, again, that I love numbers, so that we're finding is, as an example, mentorship, super important. We were just talking about this, incredibly valuable. After 2018, Me Too, obviously lots of amazing things, that is a necessary movement, but some of the unintended consequences is after 2018, now 60% of men feel that it is inappropriate to mentor a junior woman. 44% of men feel like it is inappropriate to have coffee one-on-one with a woman. That's astounding. I mean, you can have every single mentorship program in place, and if our men feel like they can't, have that one-on-one time with a high potential junior woman, what do you think that's gonna do for the prospects of the junior women who are trying to advance in that organization and connect with senior leaders, which, let's admit it, a lot of the times they're still gonna be men. And so the idea around education and coming in and really changing those perspectives and, allowing people to recognize unconscious biases in themselves and helping them through that, not in an angry way and saying like, oh, you're, biased or discriminatory or whatever, but saying we all have them and like, this is the foundation of policies we created, but this is how you should be embodying those policies and those values. That's, I think, a huge, huge step for companies. Anyway, sorry, I don't know if that was 5 minutes.
That wasn't. We probably want to close with Kiana. I think, Kiana, one important question. I want to come back to you as we are just wrapping up. From your perspective, how do Gen Zers prefer to communicate and collaborate, and what can employers pick from that, for helping connect with this population better?
Sure, I'll try to keep this quick. I think I'll just go back to flexibility, and it's not necessarily the tools we use, but how we use it. I think a big one that I preach often is like especially working from home, the 8 to 5, 9 to 5 schedule is, in my opinion, like a little bit archaic. I think we realize that there needs to be a certain period of time for meetings and such, but when you're working from home and like your mom asks you to walk your dog at 11, like it's that flexibility of being able to take that break, come back, revisit it. If you work better in the evenings, like it's super valuable to have the opportunity to do that. And the last I have two more points. One is focus time. Like now I think people are almost more available online on Teams, and that green dot doesn't necessarily mean that, I'm free. I'm just working and I'm not in a meeting. So focus time is super important, and I think a lot of people get a little anxious if they're trying to work on something. It's not really, you're not able to communicate to the broader organization, so people just start spamming you, and sometimes that's stressful. And the last thing, I know I only have 1 minute, is meetings. So like I submitted and I grew up in communicating via Messenger, Snapchat, Instagram. I submitted an assignment using TikTok this past year. A lot of things can be communicated way more concisely and not on a meeting. Like phone calls are weird now. So we don't necessarily not need meetings, but a lot of meetings can be done, I guess, more effectively with Gen Zers just through different mediums.